Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here because, man, the story we are going to unpack today is going to fundamentally change how you look at your own skills, your career, and honestly, the decisions you're making every single day. We're diving into a fascinating and, frankly, kind of terrifying real-world case study about a complete, catastrophic workplace disaster. It's a wild story that starts with pure ambition, takes a sharp left turn into absolute chaos, and wraps up with a massive lesson on the difference between genuinely knowing what you're doing and just thinking you do.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever looked at a really complex problem, maybe something totally outside your usual wheelhouse, and just thought to yourself, how hard can it really be? We've all been there, right? It's a completely natural human impulse. But this exact innocent-sounding little thought, it's exactly what led one guy to trigger a massive, wildly destructive failure. He asked himself this very question, and in doing so, literally set off a chain reaction that brought a booming business right to its knees.
One small decision destroyed everything. Just let that sink in for a second, because this explainer isn't about a simple typo or, an honest, clumsy mistake. No, this is about something way deeper. This is about the profound, hidden danger of touching things you don't truly understand. It's about what actually happens when your own self-assurance completely blinds you to the reality of a complex system. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the illusion of knowledge. To really wrap our heads around how a disaster of this magnitude even happens, we gotta understand the mindset behind it. So let's meet our protagonist, Kieran. Kieran had just landed a sweet gig at a fast-growing tech company, and honestly, his managers loved him at first because the guy was a remarkably fast learner. But Kieran had a fatal flaw. He genuinely believed that watching a quick 10-minute video hack was practically the same as spending years mastering a skill. If the experts warned him about a tricky issue, he just assumed they were overcomplicating it. If someone had spent years mastering a highly technical process, Kieran believed without a shadow of a doubt that he could learn the exact same thing by skimming a quick tutorial online. He valued fast, flashy confidence over deep, genuine knowledge. And the driving force behind all of this? The big 30. 30. Kieran was absolutely obsessed with becoming wildly successful before turning 30. Now, I want to be incredibly clear here. Kieran was not lazy. Actually, he worked harder than almost everyone around him. But this intense, burning drive to hit the top before reaching this arbitrary age milestone, it completely warped his judgment. He was in such a crazy rush to be the smartest guy in the room that he basically stopped doing the actual work required to understand what was even in the room. Which brings us to the inciting incident in Section 2, the midnight system migration. Picture this. It's late at night, the office is emptying out, but Kieran, driven by that relentless ambition, has stayed behind. As he's walking through the quiet office, he spots some senior engineers huddled around a massive computer server, and they look incredibly nervous. One of them looks dead at Kieran and drops this ominous warning. Don't touch this system tonight. It's halfway through a migration. One wrong change could bring everything down. Kieran nods at the engineer, but internally, he's just smiling to himself. He actually thought they were just making it sound way harder than it was. His arrogance was so thick, he dismissed years of hardcore engineering experience in a split second. So, a few hours pass. Everyone else finally leaves. Kieran is totally alone. He walks right back over to that glowing server. And right there on the screen is this glaring message. Warning, do not interrupt this process. But Kieran? He literally laughs. He says out loud, "Why wait 6 hours? I know a faster way." Because, of course, he had watched someone explain a vaguely similar process online. And so, armed with this total illusion of knowledge, and without understanding the company's specific, highly complex system at all, he reaches out and presses one button. Let's look at how fast this all hits the fan, because the speed of the fallout is just terrifying. At exactly midnight, the button gets pressed. At first, nothing happens. But then, at 12:01 a.m., every single monitor in the entire office instantly turns black. Boom. By 12:05 a.m., the silence of the night is totally shattered. Phones start ringing off the hook. Customers are completely locked out of their accounts. Businesses are losing live transactions by the second. And by 12:30 a.m., just half an hour after that single button press, massive emergency meetings are being scrambled in the middle of the night. It is absolute, unadulterated chaos. Now we move into the morning after, in Section 3, the cost of arrogance. The sun comes up, but the nightmare is really only just starting. The frantic energy of the midnight panic is gone, replaced by this heavy, devastating reality. Because of that one shortcut, the cascading consequences for the business were just catastrophic. They lost major, high-paying clients. Critical projects across literally all departments were delayed for weeks as the engineers scrambled just to piece the core infrastructure back together. Ultimately, millions of dollars went down the drain, all because one guy thought a 10-minute video was a substitute for actual expertise. The confrontation that morning was chillingly calm. Kieran is sitting dead silent in the conference room. Nobody was shouting, nobody hurled insults. His manager just looked at him and asked one simple question. "Why did you do it?" Kieran answered honestly, "I thought I was helping." And then his manager delivered this incredibly profound realization. The greatest disasters rarely begin with bad intentions. They begin with confidence that isn't backed by understanding. Which leads us to our turning point in Section 4, Rebuilding Through True Mastery. Kieran was fired that exact same day. But honestly, worse than that, he lost the trust of everyone in his industry. But here's where the story shifts. Instead of hiding, Kieran made a choice to completely rebuild himself. For months, every single job interview ended with recruiters grilling him about this massive, devastating mistake. But Kieran stopped looking for hacks. He stopped with the shortcuts. He spent years doing the hard, quiet, unglamorous work of truly understanding complex systems instead of just pretending to. And as he eventually rebuilt his career and climbed the ranks once again, he never hid his past. In fact, he put a quote right above his desk: "Curiosity builds wisdom, arrogance destroys it." Whenever a new employee joined his team, he would sit them down and tell them the story of his midnight disaster, just to protect them from making his exact same mistake. Over the years, Kieran actually became one of the most highly respected engineers in his entire field. Not because he was flawless, but because he swore to never again touch a system he didn't fully understand. So the absolute crucial point here is this new definition of experience he adopted. Experience is not the number of years you've worked, but the number of times you've been humble enough to admit what you don't know. Man, that is just a beautiful, hard-earned evolution of character. Finally, let's wrap this up with Section 5, Confidence versus Competence. We really need to take Kieran's hard-learned lesson and apply it directly to our own lives, because the trap he fell into is so incredibly easy for any of us to stumble into, especially in a world that constantly rewards rapid-fire, instant solutions. Never, ever confuse "I can do it" with "I understand it." So many capable people miss out on huge opportunities, not because they aren't smart, but because they mistake their own confidence for actual competence. Listen, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being curious, but curiosity without the patience to truly learn, that becomes destructive. The smartest people in the world don't pretend to know the whole shebang. They ask questions. Because a mistake made in ignorance, as we have so clearly seen, costs far, far more than years of hard work ever could. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. Are you confusing confidence with competence? Take a really hard look at your own projects right now. Because knowing the difference between these two traits isn't just about avoiding a screw-up at work. It is the literal difference between possessing lifelong wisdom and living with lasting regret. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I will see you next time.